Yes, this is Talking Saints, the official St. Patrick's Athletic podcast with myself, Jamie Moore. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, or you're watching on YouTube, you're very welcome. We're going to go from a young goalkeeper in the league to an older goalkeeper who used to be in the league and has just recently retired. Played for St. Pat's over 100 times, played for Dundalk, of course, some amazing European memories, and has now become an agent and football pundit as well. Gary Rogers, how are you?
I'm good, Jamie.
Thanks for jumping on, guys. For those who are listening to the podcast and not watching, Gary has some very impressive jerseys over his shoulder in his games room there. I definitely see Cristiano Ronaldo. Is that Real Madrid or Juventus?
That is this year's Juventus one. And it's James Rodriguez. Beside him is Bayern one.
How does a man in the League of Ireland circles get his hands on things like that?
Well, it just happens to be working with a company that represents him, so it's a bit of a bonus. Also, Robbie Keane's my own Ireland jersey signed by Robbie Keane on his last game there, so that's a pretty good one to have as well.
Nice. Let's start at the end, considering you're just talking about the new company, Gary, and we'll go back then to talk about your time at Pats in the league and get your thoughts on the likes of Jamie McGrath and others as well, and Vidislav Jaros. When you retired at the end of last season, did you know you were going to jump in to become an agent straight away? I know you've been doing some coaching as well, and you've obviously got the family to look after, so it's not as if you were going to be looking for things to do.
Yeah, no, look, it was something that came up. Like, it's more of a scouting role than I'm not actually an agent as such. I'm more recommending players for our company, and that's my kind of role now. We may progress down the line, but that's initially, the thought process on it is that I'll be looking at players in the league and recommending them for us to represent them. So that's kind of I suppose, clarity on what I'm actually doing at the minute. But it is like it was a great kind of I suppose, role to step into, because it's football related and it's what I know, it's what I've done for 20 years. And obviously, look, I'd worked in the Players Union for 10 years and 5 years as chairman. So I know quite a bit about, the needs of players and how to look after them and what they require. So it's certainly a role that I feel that was tailor-made. I had a couple of different opportunities that I could have went into, and but this is just, look, I'm really enjoying it, and it's something that I want to do and want to do well in. And it's like anything, it's nice to be involved in football, even though I'm not playing anymore. I'm really happy with the decision I made in terms of the timing of when to retire. I kind of got out of the game without, having to, pick up a serious injury and that to finish me. So I kind of went on my own terms, which I was happy about as well.
Yeah, and you've also made the transition into the commentary box. You've been doing co-coms for some of the Watch LOI games and also as a pundit on a few of the different football podcasts. So how have you found that? And I suppose moving from in the goal to in the gantry?
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I think it's nice to kind of be able to give your opinion on stuff, and you can give an unbiased opinion now, because like, the one thing I would say is when I do stuff like that, I try to give an unbiased opinion, because regardless of what's going on the pitch and what teams you've been affiliated with in the past, you've got to tell the truth on it, and you've got to kind of say what you see, if you like, and I think that's important. And I really enjoyed, I suppose, that transition, and it kind of, I suppose, it all ties in well with what I'm doing for a day job as well.
Yeah, it's something that I think over the last year or two, certainly, maybe even longer, the podcasts and the coverage of the league, and we've seen with Watch LOI streaming, and after the games this weekend, the clubs will take over the streaming themselves of the matches and stuff as well, that there is a huge amount of stuff for supporters and people now to consume, whether they want to read stuff or watch stuff or listen as well. And I think it's nice to hear, ex-pros like yourself that are able to kind of give their opinion on stuff, because you've had such experience, and I'm sure it's enjoyable for you as well to be able to get to games and, I suppose, still be involved even though you're not playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's I suppose been the shine, the silver lining about it. Like, you've been able to go to games and enjoy them, and like, games are probably, they're sadly missing fans, as we all know, and the sooner that the fans come back into the games, you can see it in the UK where you've got fans back in, it really adds to the atmosphere. And no more than Inchicore on a European night, you'd be hoping that there'll be fans in the door for Europe, because look, players are missing them every much as fans are missing the football. So I think it's a real kind of opportunity once we're allowed to get fans back in the door for people to go out and support their local clubs and go and watch live football and go and enjoy, I suppose, the talent that we have in this country, because there's some great young players coming through the leagues. And obviously, I know you've got Vita on later on, a really talented young goalkeeper, and it'll be interesting for the Pat supporters to go and see him at this early stage in his career and see where his career can go, and be able to talk about him down the line and maybe be future international and see how his career develops.
Yeah, the joys of podcast, Gary. I'm recording you before him, but he'll be on before you. So people who are listening will have already heard from him, and I'm looking forward to having a chat to him as well. Um, you've obviously been in his position for such a long time, and you've played in so many big, big games. When you think back to when you were his age, like he's 19, he's not 20 until July, and he's come on loan from one of the biggest clubs in the world, which is an interesting concept in itself. And he's played every game. He's been really, really impressive. And for someone so young to be playing every week in the Premier Division is not something that's too common.
Yeah, look, it is, and there's very few goalkeepers, I suppose, who are doing it. You look at David Odebusu at Drogheda, is kind of similar. He's doing it. Brian Maher in Bray is doing very well. So it's great to see young goalkeepers coming through, and obviously the fact that Stevie's had to go to Liverpool to get a goalkeeper to come in kind of shows that there is opportunities in the league for young goalkeepers to develop and get opportunities to play, which is hugely important in their development. And I think that's part of the reason why Vita's here is in order to get game time. I think Liverpool have probably seen the value of the league in terms of even whether it be Dundalk playing in Europe and Europa League, and they know that the standard over here is good and will help the development of their players. And obviously, look, they've got Kevin over there as well, so they would have seen firsthand how good he is as well. So it certainly, look, it's great. That we're getting the kind of our St. Patrick going to benefit from having them, and like it is our league. It's probably undervalued by people who don't really know us that well, but it does present great opportunities for young players to develop and gives them a chance, to test themselves in senior football.
I'm not sure how many times you've seen V live in the flesh. I think you were on comm certainly for the game in Dundalk, and I know you were at Richmond, one of the recent games, possibly the Shamrock Rovers one. What have you made of him? And again, for someone so young, like he's shown real confidence. And I know from speaking to the players and even Stephen O'Donnell, they forget that he's actually 19 because he's so mature and so confident and has been playing so well.
Yeah, well, that's a lovely compliment even in itself. The fact they're not really considering his age, the fact that he's 19. They just look at him as a goalkeeper and a player, and a very good one at that. Like, I think the one thing you would say is distribution is different gravy. His kicking has been excellent, and look, it's part and parcel of where he's at, and training with John Achtenberg at Liverpool and Kevin and Allison and top keepers there, and that's only going to bring you on. I know he was on the bench for a Champions League game. I think it was the game that Kevin played this year against Ajax.
He was on the bench for 4 games actually.
Yeah. So I knew that in itself will really stand to him, and that experience will bring him on. So I'm sure he's enjoying it. I know that I know a few of the lads up in St. Pat's, like John Mountney and Robbie Benson, and they're great guys to have around the place, and brilliant lads in the dressing room, and really I suppose kind of they were a big part of what the success in Dundalk, and they're kind of the way they carry themselves around the place, the way they do their business in terms of the training that they do and how they look after themselves will all be good for all the group there.
Yeah, you mentioned about Vita and his distribution and his kicking, and it's so impressive. Short, long, if he's passing it out from the back, if he has to kick it long or whatever, he's been really, really excellent at it. That's something I'm sure at Liverpool that they practice a huge amount. You mentioned Allison, you mentioned Kelleher, and it's the modern game now, and the top teams and the top clubs want a goalkeeper and need a goalkeeper really who, apart from the usual, saving shots, coming for crosses, etc., that can kick. And Vita's shown so far he's very, very good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing I suppose that you can't replicate in training, and this is why he's probably here, is decision making. So it's one thing having the skills and the tools, and there's loads of keepers who are really good trainers, but it's until you get into games, match situations, that you really see what they're made of. And what the advantage of Vita being there for the season is that he's going to put these skills and practices that he's done repeatedly in training into practice in the game, and you can't replicate match situations. So it's decision making, and decision making is something really you can't really coach to a certain extent. It's about, in the moment, making that right call, whether it's to clear the ball early or it's to take a touch and play it to the fullback or whatever it is. And he's going to gain massive experience, from playing at St. Pat's week in, week out.
Yeah, and he's on loan from Liverpool. We've got Alfie Lewis on loan from West Ham as well. 2 big Premier League clubs. In the case of Liverpool, recent Champions League winners, recent Premier League winners as well. And it hasn't been the path well trodden by players from those clubs to come on loan to the League of Ireland. Really, there's been, maybe players from some of the lower leagues or from Scotland or whatever. But it's really interesting that, you know, Stephen and St. Pat's have opted to go this route for Veet and for Alfie, who've both been performing really well. And with your hat on now of your role as kind of a scout and agent, is it something you feel might be more common as things progress? You know, given I'm sure Liverpool are watching Veet's games and have to be quite impressed with how he's doing and the experience that he's getting.
Yeah, I do think it will be an option, you know, for teams that they will explore, I suppose. But also, you've got to look at it for younger players, you know, with the likes of East and Alfie here. It's opportunities for players who are playing in them teams to kind of expose themselves to Premier League teams that are going to be watching the same games that they're playing in. So it presents great opportunities for young players coming through. And I know St. Pat's do great work in their academy, and they've lots of young players that are doing really well at 19s level and progressing into the first team. So it presents opportunities both ways.
St. Pat's and Dundalk this Friday, Gary, at Richmond. Big game for both. The last game before the mid-season break as well. We know St. Pat's had a point up in the Ryan McBride Brandywell on Monday night, and Dundalk beaten 5-1 by Bows, having beaten Shamrock Rovers on Friday. I think you were commentating on the Rovers one maybe, or you were there anyway. What's your thoughts on the 7:45 at Richmond on Friday? It's a big one.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge one, I suppose, for different reasons. Like Dundalk have been really struggling, and that game against Shamrock Rovers probably didn't come as a surprise to me that they would raise their levels to play Shamrock Rovers. But then, you know, the Bohemians game was a shocking result for them. You know, to go to Dalymount and get beat 5-1. That's not disrespectful to Bohemians. Like, Bohemians are a really good side, but you know, you wouldn't expect, you know, a team of Dundalk's caliber to get beaten 5-1. But having said that, it's going to be an interesting game with St. Pat's, and look, St. Pat's would have to be favourites. You know, the way that they've played all season long. I think, you know, when you look back to the last game between St. Pat's and Dundalk, St. Pat's were really the better side, and their fitness levels were better, and they pressed the ball better and won the ball back in good areas, but didn't really push on and get that second goal, which would have put Dundalk to bed. And in fact, Dundalk kind of came into it in the last 20 minutes and probably looked the more likely winners. So it's a case of if St. Pat's get the first goal, I think they will win the run out, you know, possibly comfortable winners.
If we stay on the team of St. Pat's and Dundalk and ask you about your former teammate, Jamie McGrath, Gary, he's a former St. Pat's player. You played with him at Dundalk, but before he joined Dundalk, he won the league here with our under-19, spent a couple of years in the first team, won 2 EA Sports Cups, did his degree through Maynooth with the St. Pat's Scholarship Programme as well. Went and started at Dundalk. He's had his move to Scotland. I think 17 goals this year in all comps for St. Mirren. And Stephen Kenny has called him up to the Ireland senior squad for the first time. Yeah,
and rightly so. Look, he's had a fantastic season. I always remember when I was at Dundalk, the first time I would have seen Jamie live, and he came on against us. I think we won the game 1-0. That was Dundalk. We had won the game 1-0. But Jamie came on for 10 or 15 minutes. I remember Andy Boyle saying, Jesus, this fella is some player, because he came in and he absolutely tore us apart for 10 or 15 minutes. And we were just glad that he wasn't on the pitch for the whole game. And I'd say that was probably initially where Stephen's interest in Jamie would have come, and I knew he signed with us a year or two later. But it's been a terrific for Jamie to obviously go to St. Mirren and do really well, and probably top scorer midfielder that Ireland have in any league, and now he's going to get an opportunity hopefully to play for Ireland, so I'm delighted for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was always a really good footballer, and you know, I suppose for the couple of years you had him at Dundalk as well, he seemed to improve physically in terms of, you know, his body and his strength and his fitness and that sort of stuff as well. You know, it was, you know, I suppose well spoken about the environment in Dundalk and how it helped people like Jamie having had a really good experience with St. Pat's as well. Have you been surprised at how well he's done in Scotland so quickly? Just given, you know, that league it can be mixed with, obviously you've got Celtic and Rangers and the others, but I mean, to score 17 from midfield as well, and he had an injury, of course, he had his collarbone midway through, so he missed games. And his form has just been brilliant, and he's a top player for them. I think he takes penalties and all sorts, so he's become a key man in what is a big league.
Yeah, like there's no doubt he's become St. Mirren's go-to man. He's been the best player all season. He won Player of the Year as well. So I'm not surprised, because I always knew that, you know, of Jamie's quality, and then, you know, physically, I think he did go to the next level physically when he was at Dundalk. You know, the kind of culture and environment, and John Mountney and Robbie Benson will tell you the same, of strength and conditioning that was part and parcel of what made Dundalk so successful. Like he really bought into that and took it on board and brought that with him, I suppose, to St. Mirren. And now he's kind of, you know, he did pick up a collarbone injury this year, but he was able to shrug it off quite quickly. And like you say, continued to come back into the team and continue to form. So it's been a terrific season for him.
another former teammate of yours is Stephen O'Donnell, who's now our St. Pat's head coach. He managed against Rory Higgins on Monday evening, who, of course, you would have played with definitely at Dundalk. Stephen Bradley was a teammate of yours at St. Pat's as well, now the manager of Shamrock Rovers, and other young managers in the league, like Tim Clancy and Darragh Doyle, etc. How have you kind of seen that, I suppose, development of a lot of younger managers who have kind of got jobs quite quickly after they've stopped playing and are all doing really well? And of course, in our case with Stephen, who was such a successful captain for you guys, and he's now the head coach here at St. Pat's.
Yeah, and look, even former teammates like Andy Myler and Gary Cronin also managing as well. Look, it's been great to see the kind of transition and lads going into football. Like, you know, Stevie O'Donnell and Rory Higgins in particular, I suppose we know them as well as anyone. You know, they're absolutely live for football, and you know, Stephen is unbelievable on the game and knows it inside out and knows players. And you know, he was a fantastic captain at Dundalk, and obviously he was the one player that everyone would have said you know, was going to be management material. Like, it was written all over him, and I'm glad to see he's gone into it. And I'd say if he had his pro license, I'd say Dundalk would be beating down the door to get him as well. So I think St. Pat's had done really good business to get him in there, and I know he's kind of struck up a really good relationship with Alan Matthews, and the two of them have been working really well together. And I suppose the proof is in the pudding in terms of, you know, what St. Pat's have done this season, and now the job will be to continue that success and to kick on and to put a title challenge together and European football for next year.
Yeah, and like when we hear Stephen talking in interviews with me through the club socials, or whether he's doing, you know, external media, he always speaks about, you know, the hard work first and how he wants the players to go out and put in an honest shift. And they've done that every game really since he's been here. And you know, they've got some late goals recently and playing some really nice football now as well. But it's the hard work side that you hear managers speak about and head coaches speak about a lot, but you can really see with this St. Pat's team that himself and Alan, they have the team really, really working together. Apart from the ability to players, that hard work and that shift every week is something that he definitely demanded, and he showed as a player, and his team are now showing it on the pitch.
Yeah, look, and Stephen will put them, I suppose, that sort of work rate will be top of his list of priorities, you know, and he really wants his players to work really hard, and that's, you know, it's very evident in the games that you've played so far this season. You look really, really fit, and you know, I noticed it particularly in the Dundalk game where I was doing commentary on that game, and you know, the St. Pat's press was excellent, but it was the timing of it, and it was four players doing it together, and you know, Robbie Benson obviously has been really good in there in the midfield, and I know you missed him over the last few weeks and that, and it's good to have him back in contention as well. So look, you know, the work rate, you know, you've got to work hard, and I think you can work as hard as the opposition. If you've got better quality, that better quality should see you through and help you pick up the points.
Yeah, you mentioned Robbie Benson there, a former teammate of yours at Dundalk, as well as John Mountney, who's come in this season. Robbie's been here for a couple of years now as well. And, you know, I think they're the type of, apart from the players, the type of characters that Stephen has spoken about wanting to have in the group. And we've got some younger players, you know, the likes of Burns and McCormick, etc., and the lads in on loan. And then, you know, people like Sam Bone, who signed, and Ronan Coughlin and Matty Smith, and the lads who've been here for a couple of years, you know, your Burmos and your Chris Forresters, Jamie Lennon, Lee Desmond. I'm not going to name the whole squad, but Mountney and Benson, and just their big game experience, their ability and their character, like, they're two brilliant lads. I know you know them so well from the European trips as well. You know, Robbie playing the board games and doing the quizzes, and Mount's just a leader by example, and someone who you want in the trenches with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Robbie and his quizzes, yeah, he'd always be if there's a sweepstake going on or a golf tournament or something like that, Robbie will have a sweep going on, but it's great for the atmosphere in the dressing room. It gets everyone involved, and you know, the lads are great at that. And like John Mountney, like, you know, what a hard worker. You would, anytime you be in the gym in Dundalk, you can be sure that John will be in there with you and be last to leave, and that sort of, I suppose, if you like, you know, silent sort of leadership where he's actually, you know, he's doing it every day and you see him and he's doing it, and then he brings it out onto the pitch. Probably an underrated footballer, John. Like, he can play in so many positions, can play in the midfield, and I know he's been playing right back for you, but you know, a very, very versatile player. I used to call him European John because he was always fit for Europe and would always do a really good job for you. And so, but like you said, the two boys are great additions to St. Pat's team and squad and dressing room.
Robbie Benson is currently doing these sweepstakes for the Euros, I'll have you know, Gary. He might include you as a former teammate at St. Pat's, because how many teams are in the Euros? 32?
32. Well,
There's probably 32 in Pats, including staff, I'd say. So you might not have room for you.
he'd be devastated if I came in and won it.
Yeah, we were on the way to the game in Derry. We were stopped in the hotel in Omer for food and just having a coffee or whatever. And I asked Robbie, we were just chatting away, and I asked him could he list off every European opposition that he played against through his time in UCD and Dundalk in chronological order. And he absolutely nailed it. Like, no questions asked. He was even going through trying to predict starting teams, who played, who scored, the best stadiums. And that just brings kind of European memories for you as well. But he's just like, and he just sat there and just bang, 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 everyone, not a bother, from his UCD, the first one he played in whatever it was, 2015, possibly 14 maybe, and then the group stage run in 16. I was reminding him of that goal in Tala and the sliding through the rain and all sorts. And just a really clever guy, but he's done great so far for Pats as well. Of course, he scored the winner against Bowes on Friday from the spot, and they got the assist as well.
Yeah, he's back on penalties as well, because he had a poor penalty in the League Cup against Derry City, if you remember. But like Robbie Benson, I suppose the goal that he scored in Warsaw was probably the best goal I've ever seen. You know, when I've been on the pitch for it, like that strike, because they'd worked on finishing the training the night before, and in the kind of cauldron that stadium was, it was probably the best atmosphere I ever played in, and the crowd just from start to finish were roaring, and Robbie to score that goal and give us an opportunity to get into the Champions League group stages. It was a phenomenal goal, and probably, like I said, it was the best atmosphere I ever played in.
We'll finish, guys, on your own European memories with St. Pat's, if that's okay. You had a couple of runs in 9-10 and 10-11, I think. You know, played in places like the Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, Iceland, you know, some big runs, one under Jeff Kenner, one under Pete Mahon, I think. And there were some good European nights in Inchicore and some interesting trips. Ian Birmingham was talking about the trip to Kazakhstan the other day, about himself and one of the players had to eat a pot noodle on the bus because they weren't having the local cuisine.
The local cuisine was very poor, and it's funny because we stayed in Astana at that time because we had heard that you know, we were supposed to play in Karagandhi, and we had heard that the Slovenians that played there the week before, they got food poisoning in the hotel. So we thought it was prudent to kind of stay miles away from it. But we were in, Jim was the kit man. Do you remember Jim? Jim was the kit man, and he headed off to the stadium early hours that day to get the gear all sorted out. And he rang back to the hotel, and he said, because we were told it was an hour and a half or 2 hours away, or I think it was an hour and a half. It took Jim 3.5 hours to get there. I think we had to jump on the bus. We were only there 20 minutes before the game, and we managed to get out of there with a 2-1 defeat, which was a bit of a miracle considering our preparation. But the bus ride down and the pot noodles on the bus and the food and everything about it was a nightmare European trip. And we even had problems with traveling over there. We had to get 3 flights, and I think Brad had to go into London with, I think, if possibly Jim, to get something from the Kazakhstan authorities in order to travel. So it was absolute carnage from start to finish. But we ended up going through that in the home game where we beat them 2-0. So it was worth it. Dave McMillan scored a goal over there. We were 2-0 down. Dave McMillan got a goal, which set us up and gave us that lifeline and seen us through in the second leg.
Yeah, the home European nights as well, Gary, are special at Richmond. And I know in a couple of the later qualifying rounds, games might have had to be moved to the likes of the RDS or Tallaght Stadium in the later years because of capacity and European safety standards and all that jazz. But if you bring yourself back to kind of Richmond and European nights and the place packed and just the atmosphere that place can create when there's big matches on, and unfortunately at the moment no supporters there for any type of game, but those European nights, players always think back to a rockin' Richmond.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and it's because the pitch, it's so close to, the fans are right on top of you, and it all helps to build an atmosphere. That a game obviously recently on Brian Kerr and Graham Buck, you could see the atmosphere there in that game, and there was only a few people in the ground. But the European night in Inchicore, they were brilliant. Obviously, we had that great win where we beat Kryla Stavitov 1-0, and the place was absolutely rocking. And look, we were looking forward to getting them days back again. And obviously, the Pats are in the hunt to be getting qualifying for Europe for next year, and all going well, we'll have supporters obviously back in later on this year. But them nights are definitely very special. European football, that's the one major advantage that our league has, that League One and Championship can't offer you. It's the opportunity to go and test yourself against the European elite and European football is really, really special for League of Ireland players.
Great stuff, Gary Rogers. Thanks for jumping on. Fascinating stuff. I'm sure I'll probably see you on Friday.
No problem at all. All the best, Jamie.